Untitled Chapter's YouTube channel. Today we are going to talk about obligations of limited liability company shareholders. Obligations of the shareholders in a limited liability company or LLC can be examined under three headings, namely basic capital share payment obligation, additional payment obligation, and secondary performance obligation. In this video, these obligations will be elaborated briefly. LLCs have a basic capital which is agreed in their Articles of Association or AOA, and it is divided into shares. Therefore, the fundamental obligation of a shareholder is to pay the basic capital share price. As a principle, shareholders are not liable for the debts of the company. If there is no provision found in the AOA regarding the additional payment or secondary performance obligation, the shareholders' obligations ends with the payment of the basic capital share price. Since the obligations of the shareholders are towards the company itself, third parties do not have the right to demand the fulfillment of this obligation. It is possible to impose an additional payment obligation with a provision that is incorporated into the AOA. Such an obligation can be requested by the managers only if the sum of basic capital and legal reserves do not cover the company's losses. It is impossible to conduct business properly without such payments, and a situation which is defined in the AOA that causes the need for equity occurs. The additional payment obligation becomes binding once it is included in the AOA. It is possible to insert such a provision to the AOA at a later stage, or existing additional performance obligation can be increased with a General Assembly resolution to be adopted by the approval of the shareholders who will undertake such obligation. The additional performance obligation can only be agreed as a cash payment. The additional payment can be refunded partially or wholly in cases where the amount of the additional payment can be recoverable with the available reserves and funds of the company. In order to reduce the amount of the additional payment or cancel the obligation, the sum of legal reserves and basic capital must cover the losses of the company completely. If deemed necessary to achieve company's goals and objectives, LLCs may put the shareholders under secondary performance obligation by providing a provision in the AOA. Contrary to the additional payment obligation, secondary performance obligation can only be determined as a non-cash performance obligation. The subsequent introduction of the secondary performance obligation is subject to the General Assembly resolution to be adopted by the approval of the shareholders who will undertake such obligation. Thanks for watching and hope to meet you in our next video.